rain began as a gentle curtain over central Florida, but within minutes it turned into one of the most intense storms in recent years. In just a few hours, the water swallowed entire streets, swept away vehicles, and transformed entire neighborhoods into rivers. Mount Dora and Eustis were among the hardest hit, with rainfall totals exceeding 18 inches and drainage systems completely overwhelmed. Images arriving through the night revealed a chaotic scene. Traffic lights flickered between waves, cars floated aimlessly, and emergency sirens echoed from every direction. What had started as just another fall downpour quickly turned into a crisis no one saw coming. In parts of Lake County, water levels broke historical records. Manholes erupted like fountains, and pavement gave way on several roads. Donnelly Street, one of Mount Dora's main avenues, split open and collapsed. Authorities wasted no time sealing off the area and declaring it a danger zone. The situation worsened when pressure dropped at both municipal water treatment plants. Officials issued a boil water notice, instructing residents to heat all drinking and cooking water before use. It was a clear sign that the system had been compromised. Maintenance crews worked non-stop to prevent further damage to the city's infrastructure. In Eustis, the situation was no better. Intersections like Abrams Road and Orange Avenue turned into deep pools of standing water. Sinkholes began appearing, and the first homes found themselves surrounded by floodwaters. In the Pine Meadows area, the ground gave way completely, forcing the immediate closure of several routes. The National Weather Service confirmed that this wasn't a hurricane or a tropical storm. It was a stationary weather system parked over central Florida, dumping relentless rain hour after hour. Low, dense clouds acted as a lid, trapping the moisture and preventing the system from dissipating. With every passing hour, the outlook grew worse. County officials activated the emergency response protocol. Text alerts were sent to residents warning, "Do not drive through flooded streets." But for many, it was already too late. Aerial footage showed rows of cars floating down the roads, while rescue crews waded through chest-deep water, trying to reach those trapped inside. Within hours, traffic came to a complete standstill. State and local highways were closed one after another. U.S. Route 441, a major artery, was shut down due to erosion and washouts. Maintenance trucks were stranded, unable to advance, and rural areas were cut off entirely. Downtown Eustis faced a similar crisis. Water poured through shop entrances as business owners tried desperately to lift their merchandise above the flood line. Northern neighborhoods lost power, and flashes of lightning illuminated the flooded streets, exposing a scene that looked more like a river delta than a city. The rain showed no sign of stopping through the night. Exhausted rescue teams worked around the clock. Firefighters used inflatable boats to reach the most isolated homes, while the National Guard coordinated evacuations in low-lying areas. By midnight, officials were calling it an unprecedented event. When morning came, the scale of the disaster was undeniable. Streets had turned into canals. Parks, parking lots, and main avenues were all underwater. Some residents managed to escape with only the clothes they were wearing, while others waited for rescue on rooftops. The brief calm after the storm didn't last long. The rain returned before noon. Radar images showed a thick, unbroken band of clouds feeding the storm. Meteorologists explained it was a training effect, where storm cells repeatedly move over the same area. That repetition was what caused the extreme rainfall totals. Meanwhile, in Brevard County, the city of Titusville faced a nearly identical scenario. There, the rainfall exceeded 15 inches. Downtown streets were completely submerged, and residents used improvised rafts made from debris to move through the water. Local authorities declared a state of emergency shortly after midday. It wasn't until late evening that the water began to recede, but the damage had already been done. Several roads showed deep cracks, electrical systems were exposed, and septic tanks had overflowed. Health officials warned of rising contamination risks and advised residents to avoid contact with standing water. The disaster came on the heels of other heavy rain events that had hit Florida just weeks earlier. It had already been a difficult year for the state, with storms becoming more frequent and more intense. Experts pointed to climate change as a driving factor behind these increasingly severe weather patterns. In Mount Dora, longtime residents said they had never seen anything like it. Drone footage showed entire neighborhoods submerged, with only rooftops visible above the murky water. In rural areas, farms were destroyed and access roads disappeared under thick layers of mud. Schools were closed, and emergency shelters filled to capacity. Dozens of families spent the night in Red Cross facilities, where volunteers distributed blankets and food. Rescued pets were taken to temporary shelters set up outside the city. Around Eustis, cleanup crews began the long process of clearing drains and removing branches, debris, and trash. Every cleared section felt like a small victory against the overwhelming volume of stagnant water. Yet the forecast warned of more rain within the next 48 hours. Assessment teams conducted aerial surveys to determine the full extent of the damage. From above, the view was uniform: water, debris, and broken roads stretching as far as the eye could see. The material losses were immense, and infrastructure damage was still being evaluated.
It's not worth.
Utility companies brought in crews from neighboring counties to restore power. More than 20,000 customers remained without electricity for 2 straight days. In some places, high water levels made roads impassable, delaying repairs even further. State officials allocated emergency funds to address immediate needs. Pumps, tankers, and heavy machinery were dispatched to speed up drainage and debris removal. Still, recovery was expected to be long and expensive. Hospitals treated patients for hypothermia, minor injuries, and exhaustion. Mental health teams were deployed to shelters to assist families dealing with stress and trauma. The psychological toll of the disaster became another challenge for the community. As the days went by, local authorities began to assess the full cost of the storm. The number of damaged homes kept rising with every report. Insurance companies faced an avalanche of claims, and analysts warned that full recovery could take months. The storm exposed just how vulnerable Florida's infrastructure is to extreme rainfall. Urban drainage systems, built for moderate weather, couldn't handle the deluge. Engineers suggested redesigning stormwater systems to withstand the growing unpredictability of the climate.
Stop car in the street.
In Titusville, the aftermath was still visible a week later. Watermarks on building walls showed how high the floodwaters had reached. In some neighborhoods, mud still covered yards, and the musty smell of dampness filled the air. Despite the widespread damage, the rescue operation was considered a success. No fatalities were reported, thanks to the swift response of emergency crews. Officials said the experience would help strengthen protocols and improve preparedness for future disasters. Florida, a state accustomed to hurricanes and tropical storms, faced a different kind of enemy this time: relentless rain and stagnant water. It wasn't wind or storm surge that brought cities to a halt, but the persistence of the rainfall itself. The event left behind hard lessons about the need for climate adaptation and the urgency of reinforcing defenses against extreme weather. As the floodwaters finally receded, the streets began to reveal the scale of the destruction. Beyond the material losses, what remained was the realization that disasters of this magnitude are no longer rare, and that in a place like Florida, where water defines the landscape, the greatest challenge ahead will be learning how to live with it before it strikes again.
Flooding my house. Yay.
You know about winter rain,